Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The road to the Call of Duty World Championship is well underway. 7 teams seem very likely to make it to champs. One team though is definitely up for grabs, that final spot, and Vegas want to take it off the Minnesota Rokkr. They made a great run this tournament to top 6, and Clayster believes the way the points work right now is not at all a good idea because they came top 6, great result, but they get barely any points to claw back on Minnesota Rokkr, and they'll have to do much better going forwards, and maybe the CDL will have to do much better in making a better format for future seasons. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. I thought this was pretty funny actually from last night's after party where like it looks like Scump and Ziddy are fans of Cellium here, right? They just rocked up on Cellium. We're like, oh Cell, can we get a picture? I thought it was pretty funny to be fair. But also wanted to mention some points on CleanX. Kind of remarkable, like because lately I've been discussing in my mind who is the greatest ever European Call of Duty player. For some time I think it's been Bance, and then Hydra of course came along, has been incredibly good this season, won the first event of the year, won the Pro-Am last year, and it's like, hang on a second, it is Hydra putting his hat in the ring to become already the best European player ever. But now you're looking at CleanX, you're thinking, well, won stage 3 in Cold War, won the kickoff in Vanguard, now won stage 3 here, with Hicksy alongside him, he's playing at an unbelievable level of Call of Duty. Like, who's the best SMG player in the game right now? You can look at aBeZy for good reason, you can look at Pred for very good reason, but right now, and obviously Shotzzy was great this weekend on the whole, but CleanX has been right up there as well. So, Hydra, of course, is not going to be too far behind, but right now, Subliner's not the tournament that they wanted. And CleanX was clapping back at some of the haters here, right? Because, of course, there was the allegations that they were, bell fiber merchants because they're playing very well online from Toronto. And I never really bought that idea just because, yes, their performances at Major 1 and Major 2, their results weren't quite as good as they would have liked. I think they got a top 4 and a top 6, but they did get double 3-0'd on that ridiculous Saturday at the Boston Major where everyone was getting 3-0'd left, right, and center. And then I guess people were also saying, okay, they're using the loudness equalization thing online to get an advantage, and they turn up to LAN, they win it anyway in relatively comfortable fashion, to be honest, all things considered. Now, this is, though, a very important factor, because we know full well that some teams are using the loudness equalization setting on their computer at home, in the comfort of their own home, in the comfort of their own facility, but on LAN, they can't do it because it's disabled. So you would wonder, why would teams decide to use it online if they can't use it on LAN? Because the game is different, the game sounds different, you can't hear the same way. Why would you, switch up the way you play the game when it's banned in a LAN environment, and arguably it should be banned online? The reason mainly has to do with the fact that the online matches are just so important, as we shall get to here in a second. Also wanted to mention on Toronto, they're the only team in the league right now with a top 5 record in every single game mode. They have the best record in Control, the 3rd best record in Search, and the 5th best in Hardpoint, which is quite interesting, right? Because, FaZe are great at Search, obviously. They've, 16-1 in their last 17 Hardpoints, or Search and Destroy, sorry. Their Control is pretty good, FaZe, but their Hardpoint has been straight up bad this season on the whole. They beat Toronto generally when they play Hardpoints, not in the series though, for sure. They played yesterday. So FaZe are good at 2 modes, pretty much. They're great at one of the modes, but it was their Search that was carrying them, and they won't be able to maintain that dominance in Search and Destroy for too much longer, I would imagine. Of course, the streak was brought to an end by Toronto themselves only yesterday on the Championship Sunday. So, and also with OpTic, right? Like, they're good in Search, they're good in Hardpoint lately, but their Control has been pretty woeful this year. So that's where Ultra have the advantage, is that they're pretty much good across the board. And Thieves have been pretty good at the respawns, but their Search and Destroy lately has been suffering a bit. So you look across the teams that are better at all the 3 game modes are probably going to do better over the tourney, and typically it's been FaZe that have been dominant in all 3, or at least good enough in all 3 to get over the line. But this year, pretty much from the start, it's been Toronto that have been there, and all the other teams around them have some weaknesses in some game modes as it stands. Also wanted to mention though, because of course last night the Dynasty was appearing during the OpTic versus FaZe series. Scump, Formal, Karma, and of course Krim was here. Envoy was on the broadcast as well. I thought it was quite funny that, Envoy was here and they saw this tweet where, Dylan there, like, the clown amongst the 4 soldiers, and, they were letting him know that he's, he belongs there and he was at home and all this sort of stuff. So it was quite nice to see. But also on this stream afterwards during the grand finals, Arcitys and Pristini came on the broadcast, and that was quite interesting, right? Because Arcitys, of course, he stepped out of the tournament earlier in the weekend because Marky B subbed in that ridiculous series and Marky B was in, and then, of course, Arcitys was out, Marky B was in, then Spark was in for the final map. It was absolutely outrageous, and, Arcitys is obviously not doing 100% okay at the moment, and he explains the reasons why, and it does seem like it is a health issue with his hands. So I'll share the clip here for you guys right now, where he says that he was having some swelling on, I'm guessing his left hand, because that was the one he was moving around, that was affecting his ability to play, and he thought it might be okay okay for the match. He played map 1. It wasn't. He realized he had to step away. And yeah, not ideal at all for Arcitys. He reckons it's improving, but still, he's going to have to think about how to solve this because we've had a lot of these hand issues over the last couple of years with the pro players.
How you feeling,
My
man?
apologies. Good?
Good?
Yeah, had a little swollen hand. Had to get out of it.
Yeah, so we were all wondering what happened. I mean, you don't have to talk about it.
Did you hear what Matt texted me?
No.
He said his mom thought I overdosed on crack or something.
I mean, we were all hella worried, man. We were like, what the f? So
it was just a swollen hand, and I couldn't. I told him, I said, I'm trying to play through it, but it's most likely not going to happen. After map 1, I said, Clayster's out shooting me. My boy James. I'm trolling. I just couldn't shoot straight. Like, it felt like I was playing with like a whole different controller.
damn, that sucks, man. I mean, we're seeing hand things, man. You gotta take care of it. Take care of, you know, as much as you can. I mean, I was icing my hand towards the end. I'd ice my hand like probably 2-3 times a week, just to, like, stop with the inflammation and like that. I mean, it's a lot of hours on the game. But everything, are you feeling better? Is it feeling better now, or have you not like played on it like since then?
I haven't been playing at all, but the swelling has gone down. Shout out to the mom. She took care of my hand ever since.
That's good, man.
Yeah, ever since I got pulled out, or I pulled myself out, which I didn't want to.
Yeah, I mean, Marky B.
It's difficult to say exactly what is precisely causing this, right? I know that Arcitys is probably going to try and figure out what's going wrong and to get it resolved because, look, we've seen quite a lot of this. Even Alex, you guys might remember, was it back in Modern Warfare 2019 towards the end, had some issues with his hands. Obviously, he's kind of disappeared from the competitive scene now, but he was having some hand problems. Of course, you know, Zuma had to retire because of it. Obviously, iLLeY is the most notable example in recent memory where he had the hand injury, had to step away. So, you know, the stretches they do, Scump was mentioning there in the clip, right, about the fact that he used to have to, well, when he was competing, he iced his hands every couple of days to ensure that because, you know, you're doing a lot of actions per minute, it's pretty, well, strenuous, right? So you can understand why, especially because some of these players play claw. I don't know why you would do that, but fair enough. Like, it's not a particularly comfortable position. You're playing these games for 8+ hours a day. It's going to take a toll if you don't look after your hands properly, right? So I guess that might have happened to Arcitys, whether it's like, whether it's just some sort of swelling or whether there's some sort of nerve thing going on. I guess we'll have to stay tuned, but he seems confident that it's somewhat improving, but he didn't seem to believe that it's like fully back to normal and ready to go immediately, which, you know, okay, we've got a couple of weeks off now, I believe, until the next set of matches, so hopefully Arcitys is going to be okay by then. But just the way that it's gone with iLLeY, right, ever since that hand injury, iLLeY went from being, I mean, he had a phenomenal performance at Major 1 in the Grand Finals, and ever since the hand injury that arrived pretty much at Major 2, he's not been the same player, you could say, even out-game and kind of in-game in terms of his leadership and stuff, in addition to not playing at the same level that he was before. And now he's out of the league, and the questions are on iLLeY whether he's going to get back in anytime soon. Whether the hand injury is still affecting him, I don't know, but like we've seen a few careers that the hand injury arrives and then it quickly goes downhill. I mean, as I say, with Alex, of course, with Zuma, with iLLeY, and maybe with Arcitys, I don't know. Like, hopefully it's not the case, but just wanted to mention and keep you guys up to date on the situation. Now, let's talk about Champs qualification, but also the way this tournament is formatted, and I can understand the frustration from Clayster heavy here about the points they managed to accrue. So Clay has placed, out of 12 events he played across Modern Warfare 2019 and Modern Warfare 2, he's placed top 6 at least at 11 of the 12 events. Of course, he's placed much better than that at some of them, but still kind of remarkable that there are still some positives to take away. Now, frankly, this Vegas team is not good enough to like win an event or something, but I think their goal is, with the talent that they have, is to try and make it to the World Championship. Now, the tricky thing is for Clay and Co is that they don't have a facility, right, to play out of. They're doing a phenomenal job, I think, regardless, and Clay individually was great this major, great this weekend, great in the qualifiers also, and the result against Thieves is going to go down in Call of Duty history. But as Clay says, let me get all my complaining out in one tweet. Got the same amount of points for a top 6 at a LAN major as I did for going 2 in 3 in an online stage. First match, last match cheese Friday, then last match cheese with no teams to scrim yesterday. What is this scheduling? Actually got swindled. So a couple of things to say here. Firstly, I guess we'll discuss the scheduling because the final game they played on Saturday, it was the very last game of the day, and all the other teams were either out of the tourney or were playing earlier in the day, so there was no one for Clayster and Co to practice against. So they had to just sit there cold all day, came out against Boston and got smoked, whereas Boston had played a series earlier in the day, and you can understand why the scheduling arguably doesn't make much sense, because Clay got up early that day just to play the very final game and be very cold for it. You can understand the frustration there. But the other point, of course, was about the points they accrued for this major cycle, and I certainly think that for a top 6 placing specifically, it does feel like you get way less points than you should, because they went 2-3 online. They get 10 points for online victory, and they got top 6 here at this tourney. An incredibly impressive accomplishment. The teams they had to beat to get to this point, okay, they beat LAG with aBeZy, but they took down Thieves to get there. Like, incredibly impressive result on LAN in front of a crowd. Like, this is where it really matters. Top 6 is quite the achievement, right? Out of 12 teams, to get top 6 is pretty good going, especially for a team like Vegas. So to only get 20 points for it feels very harsh, to be honest, given the way the standings work. Now, we said this last season, and we said it again when the format was confirmed this season, and I think they explained it and said, oh, you know, we want to keep the online qualifiers mattering, but they matter anyway. Let's say there were no points given out for the online matches, which I think there should be given some, but even if there were none, they still matter because they determine seeding for the major, which is important, right? Like, no team really wins the tournament from losers. You've got to really be in winners to win a tournament. Okay, OpTic dropped to losers round 1, nearly won it, and it has happened before, but it hasn't happened from a team starting in losers. LAG, for example, who won the event last year at Major 2, they started winners, dropped to losers round 1, and then made the run to win the tourney. Like, you know, it doesn't usually happen. So the matches online are still important for the qualifiers, but the fact that it's 10 points per online qualifier and the major points, I mean, look at the discrepancies here between qualifier points and major points. Most teams have more from online than on LAN, which I really don't think is the way that it should be here. These are the top 8 as it stands. Legion are 20 points behind, but Rokkr only got, well, Rokkr got 0 points this stage, right? They were at 110 to start. They're still on 110 because they went 0-5 and they flopped out of the major top 12. Legion went 2-3 online and they went top 6 on LAN, but if they'd have gone 3-2 Legion online, that's, you know, not exactly massively impressive, but they'd have got 30 points for that, and that's the same as a top 4 placing on LAN, which is pretty incredible, right? Top 3 gets you 40 points, top 2 gets you 50, and if you win, you get 65. So the solution to me is either to just straight up double the amount of points you get for a major, which I think is probably justified, or you halve the amount of points for qualifiers and give it 5 points each. Like, there's got to be more discrepancy there, because the major should mean way more, and if you were to give, let's say, double points for major results, then it would also open up more of a possibility for changes to happen towards the end of the year, because, you know, if, like, let's say major points were doubled, then theoretically any team can turn up to the last major and potentially score 130 points at that event, which would be good enough to get them into champs theoretically, right? So I just think majors have to be weighted way more, because, you know, you can go 5-0 online, which is, okay, impressive, but you might get an easy run of things, and that's the same as getting top 2 at the major. Like, that should be, you know, it should be rewarded way more, I think, in terms of point standing. So you can understand why Legion aren't so happy here, because, you know, they played well. It was one of their best majors in some time, but they still didn't make up the ground that they maybe feel they should have done based on their LAN performance, which is pretty solid on the whole. The other impressive thing to me, I've got to say, is OpTic, because despite all the drama and all the changes and everything that's happened this season, they're still somehow 3rd on the standings, which is quite important for them, to be fair. FaZe and Ultra might have been away and gone, especially if OpTic don't win an event this season, but still, coming 3rd for OpTic is pretty big, because if you're OpTic and you were 7th seed, you might play FaZe or Ultra round 1. If you're OpTic and you're 3rd seed, or even better, then you play a more achievable winners round game at champs when they qualify for it, which obviously is much better than starting 8th and having to play FaZe round 1 in an ideal world. But very much intrigued to hear all your thoughts on this in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.